What if I told you that you could build a fully livable tiny house and a car garage on your own land, with your own hands, for around $55,000 to $60,000? Not a fantasy, not a hack job, a legit, smart, durable setup. And here's the kicker. The steel arches on that garage? A crew of 3 can bolt them up in a single weekend. The full garage, foundation, and walls, and all, takes about 3 weeks. But that arch assembly? That's a weekend project. We're talking about pairing a DIY tiny house with a Quonset hut car garage. And today, I'm breaking down every single cost, materials, foundation, insulation, plumbing, electrical, all of it. Real numbers. 2026 data. No fluff. Before we get into the numbers, do me a quick favor. Hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell. I drop real cost breakdowns like this every week, and I don't want you to miss the next one. And stay with me until the end of this video, because I'm going to reveal the one cost that almost every builder forgets, and it can blow your budget if you're not ready for it. Okay, let's build. So why pair a tiny house with a Quonset hut garage? Here's the logic. Most people who go tiny still have a car, or tools, or a workshop, and tiny homes, by definition, have zero storage or garage space built in. So what happens? People end up renting storage units, building a separate shed, or cluttering a small space with stuff that doesn't belong inside. The Quonset hut solves all of that. It's a prefabricated, semicircular steel arch building, invented by the US Navy in World War II because they needed something fast, cheap, and strong. Originals from the 1940s are still standing today. Clear span interior, no posts in the way, your car fits, your tools fit, and the tiny house next to it is your living space. Together, they create a complete life in a small footprint at a fraction of traditional home costs. Let's look at the numbers. Let's establish the sizes we're working with, because everything else flows from here. For the tiny house, we're building a 3 by 7 meter footprint, 226 square feet of highly optimized living space. In 2026, that puts you at $127 to $280 per square foot, depending on finish level and how much labor you're doing yourself. That wide range comes down to 3 things. How finished your interior is, whether you're in a high-cost or low-cost region, and how much of the work you do with your own hands. Big enough for a real kitchen, a bathroom, a sleeping area, a balcony, and some breathing room. Small enough to keep costs under control. For the Quonset garage, we're going with a 20 by 30 footprint, 600 square feet. That's a solid single to double car garage with room for storage or a small workshop. On shape, the Q model is the classic half circle, cheapest per square foot. The S model has straight walls up to about 8 feet before the arch begins, which gives you far more usable wall space for shelving and storage. For a garage, the S model is the better call. More on that in the tip section. Let's start with the Quonset, the steel kit package. For a 20 by 30 S model kit, current 2026 pricing for major suppliers like Steelmaster and Curveco puts you at $11,000 to $13,500 for this size. The lower end of older estimates, around $5,000, would really only apply to a clearance Q model with no end walls included, so don't plan your budget around that number. These kits include arch panels, hardware, and wall panels, and erection drawings. Everything to bolt the shell together. Steel supply has stabilized heading into 2026, so prices are relatively predictable right now. Get quotes from at least 2 suppliers before you commit. Budget, $7,000 to $13,500. Concrete slab foundation. A standard 4-inch concrete slab runs $4,500 to $6,000 for 600 square feet. If you're planning to park a heavy truck or run large machinery in this garage, the 2026 standard is a 6-inch reinforced slab, which typically runs $6,500 to $7,500. Don't cheap out on the slab. This is the base of everything. Budget, $4,500 to $7,500. End walls plus garage door. The kit covers the arch, but you still need to close off the ends. Factory steel end walls with a walk door and overhead garage door run $4,000 to $6,000. If you DIY the end walls using local framing lumber, you can bring this down to around $2,500 in materials. Budget, $2,500 to $6,000. Basic electrical. For a garage, you don't need a full panel, just lighting and a few outlets. Materials run $300 to $500. With a licensed electrician for panel hookup and sign-off, currently averaging $65 to $95 per hour in 2026. Figures $750 to $2,000 total. Budget, $750 to $2,000. Quonset garage total. Steel kit package, $7,000 to $13,500. Concrete slab, 600 square feet, $4,500 to $7,500. End walls plus garage door, $2,500 to $6,000. Basic electrical, $750 to $2,000. Total $14,750 to $29,000. If you do the erection yourself, which over 75% of Quonset buyers do, you save another $2,000 to $5,000 in labor. You need a socket wrench, some rope or a basic lift, and a friend. Now for the tiny house. 226 square feet, permanent foundation, not on wheels. Foundation-based means lower insurance costs, no towing complications, and better financing options. Foundation/slab. A concrete slab runs $7 to $10 per square foot. For 226 square feet, a basic pour is $1,600 to $2,300. But for a permanent structure, you need a thickened edge slab. Those perimeter edges carry the wall loads properly and bring the realistic budget to around $2,800. If you're on a sloped lot or need a full stem wall, add $1,500 to $3,000 on top. Budget, $2,800 to $5,000. Framing/shell/structure. Walls, floor, roof structure, and exterior sheathing. For a solid DIY shell, you're at $10,000 to $18,000 in materials, consistent with the structure representing 40 to 50% of total build cost. Prefab shell kits start around $4,000 if you want to explore that route. Budget, $10,000 to $18,000. Roofing. A metal standing seam roof is the right call here. Durable, low maintenance, and it pairs well with the Quonset steel aesthetic. In 2026, standing seam materials alone are running $5 to $8 per square foot. With overhang, figure about 300 square feet of roofing. That puts materials alone at $1,500 to $2,400, and with labor and underlayment, a realistic installed range is $2,500 to $4,500. This is a meaningful update from older estimates you'll see online. Budget, $2,500 to $4,500. Insulation. Don't skip this. Good insulation is what separates a comfortable tiny house from a miserable one. Fiberglass bats run 80 cents to $2.50 per square foot. Closed cell spray foam, the gold standard for tiny homes, has seen a slight price increase in 2026 and typically starts at $2,200 for a space this size, going up to $5 to $12 per square foot installed for a full coverage job. A fiberglass bat and rigid foam hybrid is the smart DIY middle ground. The Department of Energy says proper insulation can cut heating bills by up to 30%. In a tiny house, that matters a lot. Budget, $1,500 to $4,000. Windows and doors. Budget for 3 to 5 windows and 1 to 2 exterior doors. Go double pane. The energy savings pay this back quickly. Budget, $3,000 to $5,000. Plumbing. For a 1-bathroom, small kitchen DIY build, raw pipe and fittings run $300 to $500. A tankless water heater is $600 to $2,600. Tankless units have become more affordable in 2026, but high-efficiency fixtures required by updated green codes keep the average project around $4,000. A licensed plumber for hookups and inspection adds $500 to $1,500. A 32-inch shower stall runs about $400 minimum. A stainless undermount kitchen sink is $200 to $300. Budget, $2,000 to $6,000. Electrical. Wiring materials plus a licensed electrician for panel setup and sign-off runs $750 to $3,500. Running utility lines from the nearest pole to a rural property can add $2,000 to $5,000 if needed. Keep it simple. A 100 amp panel, 8 to 10 circuits, standard outlets and switches. Budget, $1,500 to $4,000. Utility line hookup may be extra. Interior finishes. Flooring at 226 square feet runs $900 to $3,400 at $4 to $15 per square foot. Drywall and paint adds $1,000 to $2,500. Kitchen cabinets and countertops run $1,500 to $4,000. IKEA flat pack is your friend here. Lighting comes in at $200 to $600, and you should go LED throughout. Budget, $5,000 to $12,000. Mid-range finishes, no luxury items. HVAC/mini split. A single-zone ductless mini split both heats and cools. It's efficient, and it doesn't eat space. Combined with plumbing, the 2026 realistic range for both systems in a tiny house is $4,500 to $10,000. Budget, $2,500 to $4,000 for the mini split alone. Permits. Depending on your county, permits for a tiny house on a foundation and a garage structure run $500 to $3,000 combined. Some areas require engineer stamp drawings for the Quonset structure. Budget $500 to $1,500 for that. Budget, $1,000 to $3,000. Tiny house total. Foundation or slab, $2,800 to $5,000. Framing plus shell, $10,000 to $18,000. Roofing, $2,500 to $4,500. Insulation, $1,500 to $4,000. Windows plus doors, $3,000 to $5,000. Plumbing, $2,000 to $6,000. Electrical, $1,500 to $4,000. Interior finishes, $5,000 to $12,000. HVAC mini split, $2,500 to $4,000. Permits, $1,000 to $3,000. Total, $32,000 to $68,000. Mid-range sweet spot. For a 3x 7-meter build with a balcony and solid mid-range finishes, $45,000 to $50,000 is the realistic target. The high estimate of $68,000 reflects premium finishes and hired labor. That's your call to make. Let's put it all together. Quonset hut garage 20 by 30, $14,750 to $29,000. DIY tiny house 3 by 7 meter, 226 square feet, $32,000 to $68,000. Combined total $46,750 to $97,000. A realistic mid-range DIY budget for this full compound is $55,000 to $70,000. If you're building a 3 by 7 meter with a balcony and solid, but not extravagant finishes, $57,000 to $60,000 is your honest all-in number, which is exactly what the title of this video promises. The high end hits $97,000 if you hire out labor, upgrade finishes, and hit bad luck on site prep. That's why we're going to talk about contingency in a moment. For context, the average new single-family home in the US now costs over $400,000 to build. You're doing this for a fraction of that. Okay, I promised you the one cost that blows budgets. Here it is. Site prep, clearing, grading, and gravel base work. This is the invisible line item that shocks people. If your land is raw, wooded, or uneven, site prep can run $3,000 to $15,000 depending on terrain, tree removal, and drainage. Utility connections. Running electrical from the nearest pole can add $2,000 to $5,000. And here's where 2026 data has really shifted. Septic systems. If you're on rural land without sewer access, a new anaerobic septic system now averages $8,030 nationally. If your soil requires a mound system, which is common with poor drainage, you're looking at $15,000 to $20,000. That is not a typo. Budget accordingly. Perc tests. Before you can even get a septic permit, most counties require a percolation test to determine what kind of system your soil can handle. In 2026, Perc tests run $700 to $2,000. This often gets skipped in budget conversations. Don't let it surprise you. Tools and equipment rental. In 2026, Renting scaffolding or a small crane for the Quonset arch assembly runs about $400 per day. A full erection weekend with equipment costs $800 to $1,200 in rental alone. Budget at least $1,200 to $2,000 for equipment rental across your entire build. Rework. Construction experts estimate that rework on DIY projects averages 7 to 10% of total project cost. If you're at $60,000 total, that's a $4,200 to $6,000 buffer you should have in reserve. Bottom line, always add a 15% contingency to your budget. Always. A few smart design choices that save real money. Put the tiny house and garage on the same slab run, if possible. One pour, one mobilization fee. That single decision can save you $500 to $1,500 right there. Go S model over Q model for the garage. The straight side walls give you 8 feet of usable vertical space for shelving, wall-mounted tool storage, and cabinets. For a working garage, that vertical space is worth more than the small cost difference. DIY the Quonset erection. Over 75% of buyers do it themselves. You need a socket wrench, some rope or a basic lift, and a friend. That saves you $2,000 to $5,000 in labor. Source interior materials secondhand. Reclaimed wood, salvaged kitchen cabinets, vintage doors, and secondhand appliances can save thousands while adding real character to the space. Stick to standard Quonset kit widths. Custom sizes cost more. Pick a standard footprint and design within it. Hire an electrician only for panel setup and sign off. Then do the rest of the wiring yourself where code allows. Same approach for plumbing. DIY the rough in. Bring in a licensed plumber just for the connections and inspection. Here's the truth about this build. It's not easy. It takes time, planning, grit, and a good contingency fund. But it is absolutely doable. For roughly $55,000 to $60,000 all in on a 3 by 7 meter build with a balcony, you can have a real tiny home and a real car garage on your own land, built by your own hands. That's freedom that most people only dream about. If this video gave you clarity on where your money is actually going and where it tends to disappear, then it did its job. Drop a comment below with your biggest question about this build. I read every single one and answer as many as I can. Hit subscribe if you want more real cost breakdowns like this. No sponsor fluff, no made-up numbers. And if you found this useful, share it with someone who's seriously thinking about going tiny. You might save them from some expensive mistakes. I'll see you in the next one.